Hello everyone and welcome to a wonderful Armageddon game from round 3 between Viswanathan, Anand and Wang. It's a game that is very important for the tournament standings and it's a very enjoyable one. So let's dive straight into it. So like I said, this is Armageddon. In their classical game, they played a very solid Sveshnikov that ended in a draw after some 30-something moves. So Anand doesn't feel that he will be able to push for a win if he again allows how to go for the Sveshnikov. It was an incredibly solid performance with the black pieces, so Anand has to choose something different. So instead of going, of allowing Wang to play the Sveshnikov, he repeats with e4. We have c5, the Sicilian defense, knight to f3, knight to c6, but now bishop to b5. The Nimzovich-Rossolimo attack, g6, and now Anand castles with bishop to g7, c3, and e5. So this is the standard fianchetto variation, striking in the center with the d4, c captures, and now e captures on d4. Grabbing a pawn, and now just bishop to f4. You can't win back the pawn, even if you capture the knight here, d captures, and the queen then defends the pawn. So we don't want the pawn just yet. So bishop to f4, Anand continues development. He has to play for a win. We have a6 challenging the bishop, and bishop to c4 now. We have d6, and now knight b to d2. And here, the position is a known one. Usually knight to e7 is played, nor knight to f6 is played. But here, Hao plays h6, which is kind of a losing move. But of course, this is an Armageddon game. You don't have all that much time to think about it. So it's very hard to pick up on why this is such a bad move. So Anand played bishop to d5, which is kind of the idea, but he misses one in between move. And that move is, and I'm just going to show it to you, queen to b3. And of course, pawn to h6 is a new move, so already as of move 10 we have a completely new game. But Anand's bishop to d5 is the correct way, but first you have to prepare it with queen to b3. Now the f7 pawn is hanging, so this is now with tempo, and also the b7 pawn is pressured, so black will not have this very useful bishop to e6 at any point. And now after black defends with queen to e7, now the bishop to d5 is a different story, because now again you go after knight to c4. We want to win this d6 pawn, and there's not all that much black can do. For example, bishop e5, we're going to play bishop captures, d captures on e5, and now just rook a to c1. And it's a really bad position for black. It's very unrealistic to hope to actually hold this. Okay, just capturing here would be enough for white to gain winning advantage. You can't move the bishop, you can't really do anything here. You can't move the queen to help out with the defense of the c6 square, because then we just pick up the knight and then you lose the e5 pawn. So and you still have to develop the knight and the castle to just get a little bit of safety. So this is the way to go. However, Anand plays bishop to d5 first, and this just allows knight g to e7, because bishop to d5 does not come with tempo. Knight to c4, Anand will win the d6 pawn, but Hao says not a problem. You can have that pawn. I need to give a pawn back either way. So bishop captures on d6, and now just rook to e8. We have bishop back to g3, and now rook back to f8. You do not want this knight to d6 at any point to come with tempo, so just rook f8. It's a very solid move, defends the f7 pawn, and Hao only needs a draw to actually win the Armageddon game. So h3, and now knight captures on d5, grabbing that strong bishop. E captures on d5, and now of course not queen captures. I hope none of you were considering this, because then just knight b6 and you win the game. So after e captures on d5, knight to e7, going after the pawn this way. Knight captures on d4, and now knight captures on d5. And here we've traded down pretty much everything. It's equal material. Anand has the two knights and the bishop, and Hao has the two bishops and a knight. So here we have knight back to b3, and pawn to b5, now preparing to fianchetto the light square bishop. So it doesn't seem like Anand created any winning chances here with white. However, he does have a very firm grip on the position. He plays knight to d6. A knight on d6 is, well, definitely an advantageous position for a piece. Knight to b6, and now knight to c5. So now Anand has a knight on the 5th rank and a knight on the 6th rank, and that's just controlling so many squares. Here we have rook to a7, and here around this point How was very low on time. He had like a minute on the clock. Anand had over 4 minutes on the clock, and Anand just cold-bloodedly plays pawn to b3, and he offers a rook. Now, of course, as Anand needs a win, this is a very, very clever way of trying to get winning chances, because if bishop captures, rook, queen captures, now it's white who controls the dark squares around the black king. Imagine if one of the knights comes to f6, that's just game over. So, of course, Hao does not want to allow this. He plays knight to d7, now controls the f6 square, and Anand goes back, knight c to e4. Now, again, putting pressure on that f6 square, but now you could capture on a1, because the knight does cover the f6 square. Still, he wants none of it. He just plays knight to f6, and now Anand plays rook to c1. And here, Anand is threatening to pick up the bishop here, as the knight and the rook are attacking it. And what you should do is play something like rook to c7 or bishop to e6. But Hao played knight captures on e4, thinking that, well, Anand just has to capture, and then I trade queens, and that's it. I get an easy draw, and that's pretty much it. However, Anand first plays rook captures on c8, and now there really isn't a good move here for black, because if you move the queen, let's say queen to e7, we can just play rook e1. And how are you defending this? Not a lot you can do. If you play f5, we can just play queen c2, and the position is just disgusting to play for black. But we could even go for a forced line with something like rook captures on f8, queen captures, knight captures, pawn captures, and rook captures, and you get this position where Anand is up seemingly only one pawn, but black's position is completely shattered, and it would be way too easy to play against this. So yeah, this would be winning for Anand. So Hao decides to give up the queen instead. Queen captures on c8, knight captures, and the rook captures. And it's not all that easy to win this. He has a rook and the knight for a queen. Anand has to be very, very precise here. Anand plays queen to g4, puts pressure on the rook here and the knight. So rook to e8, you have to defend the knight. This is the only move. Bishop to f4, remaneuvering the bishop over to e3, and now rook a to e7, doubling up on the e file. Bishop to e3, and now rook to e6. So now Hao wants to play b4. He wants to play a5, create a blockade on the queen side, and he wants his rooks to basically defend everything, and then it's not going to be possible for white to push for anything. So rook to d1, we have pawn to b4, now not allowing Anand to start pushing his pawns, and rook to d3. We have a5 as planned, and now queen to d1. So this is one thing that Anand has. He can play rook to d8, and he can trade off a pair of rooks, which is the way to go. Knight to c3, attacking the queen and the a2 pawn, not just queen d2. Defending the a2 pawn, we have h5, and now rook to d8. Without this rook to d8, you would have to resort to some g4 maneuvers, trying to open up the position and going for a checkmating attack, but this is much, much safer. Rook to d8, we have bishop to f6, forcing the trade, rook captures with check, rook captures, and now queen to d7. We have rook to d8, and now if you did not have the weak a5 pawn, this would be much easier to play. However, Anand just plays queen to c7. Queen to c6 is even stronger, but of course, for when you have so little time on the clock, it is a move you don't play. Here you attack the bishop, and once black defends the bishop, let's say bishop to e5, black threatens checkmate here. You're going to play g3, and now after rook to d5, it seems like black has everything under control, because everything is absolutely defended. The knight defends the rook defends the a5 pawn, this defends this defends this, so there's no weakness here. But you would have bishop to c5, and now slowly but surely you would either create some big problems for the black king on the back rank with some ideas like queen here, bishop to f8, or you can just play bishop to b6, queen to a8, and then win this pawn with the bishop. But still, it's not all that clear, as the knight also would capture the a2 pawn, so it's a very tricky position. Now, of course, Anand would be winning here, but not enough time to calculate this. So Anand just plays queen to c7, he goes after the a5 pawn, now comes rook to d5. Wang Hao defends it. G4, now you have to resort to this. H captures, and now you have to play bishop to D4. This is the only way to continue playing the game. For example, captures, and now yes, your A5 pawn is hanging, but so is Anand's G4 pawn. Anand would still be better here, but you would have better chances of maybe defending this position. However, knight captures on A2 was played, and now the position is completely winning for Anand, but it's not all that clear why. So feel free to pause the video here and try to find the winning move for Anand while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting this beautiful double attack. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is queen to c6. That's the good stuff. Now, okay, you're probably wondering, yes, you are attacking the rook and the bishop, but we can just play rook to d1 check and then defend the bishop. What's the big deal? That's exactly what happened. Rook to d1 with check, king to g2, and now king g7. It seems like you've done nothing, but there's the incredible bishop to h6 check. And now black is just getting checkmated. There's nothing you can do about this. King captures on h6, queen captures on f6, and now whatever you do, it's just not going to be enough. This pawn is coming to f4. You're going to control all of these squares, and of course queen to h8 will just be checkmate. So this is only one of the variations that win, but so are many others are winning as well. Knight to c3 was played, but now just pawn to f4. Rook to d2 check, king to h3, and it was in this position on move 44 that Wang Hao resigned the game, and another victory for Viswanathan Anand, that being his third victory in a row. First two wins were in Classical, this one in Armageddon, but still a third in a row. Here he resigned because there's no move for black. If you give one check, king h4, now this is the threat of checkmate, and you can't defend this. If you play something like king to h7, then we just capture on f7, king h8, and now king to g5. We're gonna put the king here and then just checkmate the black king. So nothing you can do here, and of course it's just pointless. Of course you cannot play rook to d8. The queen covers the d8 square, so you really have no moves here. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, another very nice victory for Anand in a row, 3 in a row. This would be, if you guys are interested in the standings after 3 rounds, these are the standings. So Anand is winning with 7.5 points. As you know, you get 3 points for a win in the Classical and only 1 point for a win in the Armageddon. So here, as you can see, Anand has 7.5, so that's 2 times 3 for Classical, 1 draw and 1 win in the Armageddon. Wesley So in second place with 6, Magnus with 5.5 in third place, Maxim in fourth place with 4.5, with 4 points, Anish Giri and Shahriar Mamedyarov, Wang Hao with 3 points, Topalov with 2, Ariantari with 2, and Rajabov not being his tournament for the moment with 1.5 points in 10th place. So yeah, there you have it. Hope you enjoyed the standings as well. I would like to thank Valentin Moreira, Anand Legend, Varun Sudarsanan, Richard Knapp, and Raymond Young for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of this spectacular event until it finishes. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.